Samratiga, we just spoke last week. I haven't talked to him in forever. So it's good to see everybody again, and I like the turnout. My page is full of little screens. It's great to.
It's always a pleasure to have a good turnout. But sorry, everyone. It took me a second to connect. Little low bandwidth area, but I'll just go ahead and welcome everyone. Welcome everyone for the Academic Essentials Workshop. Today we have Professor Matt Lavery, who is one of our amazing outspoken individuals in our campus, and trust me, he's very fun to be around. And today we're going to be talking about all the academic resources we have on our campus that will assist you, and which we feel it might be essential for you towards your continued learning and development at your time at Adelphi. So with that said, welcome, Matt, and it's all yours. Go ahead.
Great, thanks very much. I'm happy for the chance to meet you all. I know it's meeting you, which means we're not really meeting, but hopefully someday we will. Rosemary, just mute.
Miss Rosemary, could you mute your mic if you don't mind?
I'm looking to see if there's a way.
Yeah.
I'm not the. Are you the owner?
I'm sorry about this thing, but hold on one second.
Hold on one second. Hold on.
Miss Rosemary, could you mute yourself for a second?
Great.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could you mute yourself for a second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. All right, Matt, please go ahead.
We've all learned this, right? This is the Zoom reality. It's crazy. So I hope that at some point I'll be able to meet you and see you and work with you in person. I'm looking forward to answering any questions that you have. But first, I'm going to do a quick overview of some of the different services where you can look and turn to for support in different ways, focusing on academic support services. And then what I'd like to do is give you a demonstration of how you can access tutoring appointments at the Learning and Writing Center. So I'm going to ask any of you if you have had a tutoring appointment. Can you let us know either in the chat or maybe find that little thumbs up icon on your computer or something? That I just want to get a sense of whether or not you're familiar with the tutoring services, so that I don't bore you with details you don't need. Now just wait a second there. All right, I'm not seeing anything coming in, and that's good. That actually means that this session should hopefully be useful to you, because it's going to help you connect with the tutoring service. I'm going to try and block this light that's behind me, so it doesn't. If it makes me look like I have a halo, that's even better. Okay, so I'll lay out some things for you. Again, if you have any questions, you can either ask them in the chat or hold them for when after we're done, and we can talk about these questions more. So the office that I run is called the Learning and Writing Center. There's a chance that this semester its name is going to change. If it does, we'll let you all know. But either way, it's going to be the same office. This is a place all students are welcome to turn to for peer-to-peer engagement on their work. This is a service that you already pay for by virtue of paying your tuition. So it's something that's there. It's available to you. It isn't an extra charge, but you are paying for it. So be willing to use it to the extent that you're paying for it. And again, I'm going to show you how when we get there. First, what I want to do is sort out the sorts of questions that you may have that are academic in nature. There are really 3 different places that you would go to have an academic question answered. You can go to any or all of them. You don't need really to decide between them, but some questions are going to be better answered by some people rather than others. The first sort of academic question that you may have is one that relates very generally to the degree program in which you're enrolled. So questions like this may be things like, Am I taking the right classes? Am I going to graduate on time? Is there a version of the class that I should take that would be better suited to my interests? Those are academic questions that are probably best answered by your advisor. So one way to think about them is questions about academics that don't connect to a specific class or semester. These are often best answered by your advisors, who are embedded in the programs that you are taking and who know the progression of the curriculum in those programs the best. So keep in mind that your academic advisor is an academic resource for you. They're not simply someone who signs off on your course request forms. You can and should feel free to reach out to your academic advisor. Now, having said that, there are times when you may not want to reach out to your academic advisor, or when you have a question that's similar to the ones I asked, but may not be appropriate for the academic advisor. One question is, do I want to change my major or change my concentration? So suppose, for instance, that you are in the School of Business and you really develop a passion for working with nonprofit businesses to help change people's lives, and your focus continues to stress between changing people's lives in a positive way. Turns out you may want to consider a major in something like social work, right? Where we have graduate programs as well as in business. These are questions that you may want to ask. Your advisor could help you think through these issues, but it can feel strange sometimes to talk to your advisor who is embedded in one major about the possibility of switching to another major. Right? So in a case like this, a resource that you may want to use is the Office of Academic Services. It's often called OAS or OASR, and you can find ways to access this office virtually. They have a live chat virtual service while during the COVID era we're closed. Or we're not closed, we're not operating on campus. Most services have moved off campus. There's some on-campus presence, but most of the services being delivered virtually. So OASR is an office that you can work in. In person, it's in the Nexus building. At the end of the opposite hallway of the admissions department. So basically you walk in through the door, you just follow it down to the end of the hallway and they'll get you to the OASR office. So this is the first set of academic resources for one type of question, which is a large program related question. You can talk to your academic advisor, you can talk to academic services, you can also talk to the excellent staff in international studies. They will also have those answers. I don't want to leave them out, especially because they're sitting in on this call and they are definitely able to answer those questions as well. So, but I figure that you are here at this workshop because you're responsive to their questions. So you can go to those three resources. One thing that is often true for international students is that they hesitate to ask questions like this because they feel like it's inappropriate in some way. They can feel like they're being rude by asking a question, for instance, about trying to change major. This is not the question you want to sit on. This is exactly one of the core questions that the university wants you to consider. So by all means, don't hesitate to ask a large programming question when you have one. That's the first group of questions. I'm going to pause for a second to see if anyone has any questions about that, about working with your academic advisor, anything like that you want to raise now.
And guys, I would say that please feel free to put your questions on the chat or even unmute yourself. You can go ahead and ask. So let's have it more of an interactive thing. So please don't hesitate.
And if you are thinking about a question and it comes to you later, we'll have more Q&A throughout the whole thing. It's a good number of people on this call, so but we can definitely talk. So no, OASR right now is hosting most of its support virtually. The reason reason for this is their on-campus presence is irregular. I was on campus yesterday, and there was someone in the OASR office, but it wasn't programmed or scheduled. So they're communicating largely this way through Zoom or Google Hangout, and the connection to OASR is on is through you can find them through the website. It depends on this question. Do we need to set up an appointment beforehand? No, not necessarily. They have a live chat function. The only time when that live chat function may keep you from going directly into an appointment is if all of their staff are currently working with someone else. So this is the typical kind of, you call someone on the phone for service and they say, all of our agents are currently working with another customer. In that case, you may have a request to set up an appointment time, whether that's virtual or in person would be a different issue. Most likely it's going to be a virtual appointment. But at times like the open advisement sessions, which now is later than it usually is. I don't think it's until April that we're actually doing open course selection. There is a significant amount of availability in the office. So I wouldn't be surprised, like if you had a question that you wanted to raise today after this was over, I would guess that you would be able to do it by getting in contact with the OASR office, right? And they would be able to work with you right then in there. Like some of these services, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about my office, the tutoring office, you may meet someone or work with someone in these offices who you prefer to work with. In that case, you would probably want to schedule with them. So if you're working with one of the advisors and you just have like a better rapport with them, you find that it's easier to talk to them, or that they always ask you the right questions that you didn't think of asking yourself, then you should feel comfortable scheduling an appointment with that person. But if you're looking for a particular person, I would schedule ahead of time. Right? And again, if you go to talk to OASR, that doesn't mean you can't talk to your advisor. They work hand in glove. So feel free to do both. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to a different kind of academic question that you may have, which is a question that relates directly to class, to a specific class that you are taking, right? So there are a bunch of questions that connect to this. These are things like you're taking a class and you're reviewing the notes and things like that, and there's still confusion that you have, or you want to get more time practicing something that you worked on in class, right? Like imagine a statistics class, for instance, that's working with SPSS, a computer program to process statistics, and the instructor says, okay, we're going to do some practice examples on how to find z-scores, and they run through 2 practice examples, the class ends, and you say, yeah, I'd like to do some more of these examples, and either it isn't in assigned homework, or you're looking at the homework problems and you're not sure if you've done them correctly. This is the sort of question that I'm talking about here, specifically tied to a particular class. There are really 2 resources that you should feel comfortable to reach out to. Well, that's not true. There are more. There's several resources you can reach out to on questions like this, and just like the last question, you can use them all. You shouldn't have to feel like you should choose between them. One of these places where you should go is the course professor. So I'm sure you've heard this before, probably a million times, but it can't hurt to restate that every instructor, every professor at the university maintains an office hour for every class that they teach, one time a week. These should be posted. They should be listed on the syllabus, or they should be something that you can identify by reaching out to that faculty member. The same thing is true of office hours as was true with talking to an open advisor. Many students avoid office hours because they're worried that going to an office hour makes it look like they're not paying attention or they're not very smart. I want to urge you, if you hold that view, to reject that view. The opposite is true. Most instructors see attendance to office hours as a sign of strength. It shows that you are willing to engage, that you're curious, that you're paying attention, and that you have more questions that you want to get addressed. So don't shy away from office hours because you're afraid it's going to reflect poorly on you. The opposite is true. This is also true in a case when the instructor has a tendency to talk too fast or move really quickly between things like PowerPoint slides, if they're using them, or examples, or if you're in a seminar related course where there's a lot of talking and interacting that's going on in the class and it's just happening really fast. This is only more possible when you're taking classes through Zoom or a video distance software, right? Where you glitch out, you drop it for a minute, somebody freezes, and you don't know if they were frozen or if they were actually going. This happens all the time. So if there's something that's happened in the class and you've missed it, office hours is a perfectly legitimate place to go to follow up some of those things that were said, right? And it never hurts if you're going to professor's office hours to come with a kind of bit of almost like a little bit of a prepared speech to say ahead of time as to why you're there. You can say something like, there was an interesting discussion that was happening in class and I just wasn't able to follow it. So so if you can just help me review the material that we were discussing in class, that would be useful. I know I have a tendency to talk too fast. I get really excited. I enjoy talking about these things, so it can help me. It can encourage me to really get going. And it's difficult for me to remember sometimes that not everyone is keeping pace with my verbal speed. So it's really, really important to reach out and say to somebody, this all really sounds interesting and is valuable, but it would help if we would just go a bit more slowly, or in the office hour, I just want to review what was said or what we passed. Okay? So the first stop for a class-specific question is the course's professor or the teacher. That is often the most helpful, most useful, and most immediate resource to reach out to. The second resource is, and I want to make a connection between this one and the third, but I don't want to leave it aside, is peers and your peer network. So it's perfectly appropriate for students in classes to develop study groups and like mutual support groups where they're reaching out to each other to do things like review class assignments, just talk about what happened in the class, to if you are doing something like reading a book or an essay or an article that you read and it still wasn't totally clear to you. Working with your peers is a very, very reasonable academic support structure that you can use. It's difficult to know where to go if you don't know the students who are in your courses. But one thing that I strongly suggest is talking to your instructor about letting the class know that you would be interested in setting up a discussion group. This is particularly important when we're operating online, because in a classroom, and hopefully some of you are getting to go to classes on campus, but when the class meets in a room, the easiest thing to do is just stand outside the door to the room when everyone's leaving and say something like, hey, would you be interested in getting together to review some of the material? That can be hard to do online because you're not seeing people, but if they have things like an open chat for a session, you could paste in the chat, I'm interested in starting a study group. Please contact me if you're interested, and put your email address in the chat. That way, students who are interested, many students are probably thinking the same thing, and they would reach out to you. It's important to remember that if you have a question or a concern in your class, it is very likely that many other students in the class have the same question. And that the challenge becomes, who's going to say it first out loud, right? People don't like necessarily to acknowledge, be the first one to speak in a room when no one's talking. But you don't feel like the study groups are very, very effective as a means of reviewing content and material, even if you're familiar with them. And they are excellent as ways to recruit critical readers for your coursework, like a paper that you've written, even as you're developing it. It's really, really useful to have other people that you're talking about your assignments with. So don't hesitate to put a message like that in the chat and say, I'm interested in forming a study group for this class. Anyone else who's interested, please contact me. Here's my email address. You can also ask the instructor to invite students to form study groups, and then they'll hand that off to the people who are interested in, and you take it from there. So keep in mind that your peers, your colleagues in the class, other students, are also an academic resource. This brings me, however, to the primary thing that I'm here to discuss with you today, which is the Learning and Writing Centers, the tutoring services at the university, the open tutoring services that is the office that I administer. And I want to tell you a little bit about what the office does and doesn't do, just so that you understand how to use us effectively in the future. First, in the current moment, we are operating all online. We have a couple of different ways that we're operating online, and I'm going to show them to you later. But the most important thing to know is that all of our services are operating this semester online. If we are operating in the summer online, you'll hear about that. You'll get an email about those contact details. But in either way, you can find us primarily, and this is the second thing, on eCampus. eCampus is our tab. Now I'm going to screen share in a few minutes and walk you through the process of how you would find our services and how you can book and make an appointment for our services. So, I'll show you that in a second, okay? The second thing I wanted to note about our services is that there are limits to some of the things that the tutors can do, who the tutors are and what they do. So the tutors are peers. They are undergraduate and graduate students at the university, so they are very familiar with your situation. They are in classes. Sometimes they're in classes that you're in. They've worked with professors across the majors, and they have experience in the same kinds of challenges that are the same kinds of work, facing the same kinds of challenges that you face. So many of our peer tutors, for instance, work outside of school. So they understand the challenges of having to go to class, do homework, and work as well. They are trained, so we don't just grab anybody and bring them in. The students are trained in how to work with their peers. This focuses mostly on things like how to ask the right kinds of questions to help you make a connection that might be available to you that you don't see. So you should expect going to a tutoring appointment that you're going to be asked a lot of questions. This doesn't mean the tutor can't help you or doesn't know the material you're talking about. It means that they've been trained to use questions as a way to help prompt learning. There's a really important reason for that, and it is that since these students are peers, there are limits to the ways they can engage with your work that are guided by university policy. The most common way we see this working at the center is that a student will bring with them a paper for a writing tutor, and they will say to the writing tutor, can you fix this for me, right? Meaning, can you correct grammar or make changes to the format of the paper, which seems very strange if you're not familiar with things like APA format or Associated Press format or one of those other formats that you may be asked to write in. The tutors are not allowed to make those kinds of changes. So they don't do line-to-line editing. Similarly, if you come to a tutor for help with something like chemistry problems, right? The chemistry problems that students are asked to complete online, or a lab report or statistics equations, or you're in a physics class and you have homework to do. There are limits to how the students can engage with those questions, because if they cross those limits, it starts to blur the line over whose work it is, and it creates a risk of an academic honesty complaint for both you and the tutor. Now, I promise you that the tutors who are working at the center want to help and can help. They have access to a lot of resources that are going to be able to help you, but they may they have to keep your work at a certain distance from themselves so that they don't put you and them in hot water with something like plagiarism. So I hope that's clear. I hope that makes sense. And again, the students are there to help. They have a bunch of techniques that they can use to help, but they are limited in what they do. One more note about how the peer tutors work, and then I'm going to pause because we said a lot, so we'll open the rooms for some more questions, is that the tutors don't work on a class-to-class basis, right? So there is not, for instance, a tutor for every specific course that meets at the university. The tutors are selected by broad subject areas. So we have tutors who work in, for instance, business, and some have a focus on marketing, and some have a focus on management, and some have a focus on decision sciences, right? That doesn't mean that that tutor that you work with has had that class with that professor that you have. It is also important to note they don't need to have had that class with that professor to be able to help you with their work. Again, they focus in problem solving in these broad curricular areas, and so far, if we look at the evidence, they're pretty successful. I looked at our tutoring center's statistics just this morning, and already in less than 6 weeks in this semester, we've had over 630 appointments with over 200 students, right? And those students have evaluated the service at a 92.4 approval rating. So most of the students come in and they're very happy with the service they're getting at the center, and it helps that process if you understand these elements of the tutors. Now, I've said a lot about these services. That's kind of the end of this second type of service. I'm going to show you concretely how you book an appointment, but before I do that, I just want to pause to see if there are any questions.
You can again put your questions in the chat, or else you can unmute yourself and please ask Matt, because this workshop, this is the time you can ask any type of academic resources related question, because he's our guru, and you could always ask him anything you want. Well, Matt.
Okay, I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to.
Okay, we have a question.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Questions. So let me answer this statistics question first. There are a couple ways that you can get help in statistics. We have statistics tutors. So you can meet a tutor. Again, I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. And you can ask them questions about statistics. We have various tutors who have different ranges of experience with statistics, including graduate psychology students who probably have the most experience with statistics. And we also have students who have taken business statistics, for instance. So either tutor would probably be able to help you. But certainly, you can make an appointment and work with a tutor in statistics, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. Now, this question about can writing center tutors help with research? They can, right? So there is research assistance that you can also get at the university's library. And I definitely want to give a shout out to the library. They're eager to work with you on things like how to navigate the databases and how to conduct research. You should definitely feel comfortable using the library resources. But you can also meet with writing tutors to discuss how you research. And they can help you move through things like the university's databases. If you are unfamiliar with, for instance, using the library's website to search for sources, they can show you how to do that. They can show you techniques that they have used for broad internet searches, or finding archives, or referring to different web pages. Most of the help that you are going to get from tutors are based on their own experiences of solving the same kinds of problems that you're facing. So all of the students who are working in writing have done research for research papers. So it's a great use of the center to book an appointment with someone early in the process when you've been given an assignment to say, I have to find information for a class, and can you help me develop research strategies? So you can do that as well. I think on this last question that just came in, these are great questions, by the way, exactly the sort of thing I'm glad that you asked. I think that students, many of the tutors would be able to show you how to use a service like Handshake, which is one of the other services that you can sign up for and use through eCampus. Many of the tutors may be unfamiliar with it. I don't know, we don't necessarily have someone who specializes in that area, but you could certainly ask someone if they had that experience, particularly if you're already meeting with them, and they would be happy to show you. For something like Handshake, which is run out of the same office that helps with job placement and internships, which is the Center for the Career Center. What's it called? I forget its name.
Center for Career and Professional Development.
Center for Career and Professional Development. And we work very closely with that office. We do writing workshops together with them that focus explicitly on like how to write an application for an internship, like the Jagger Fellowship. The writing tutors work with students to help them on resumes, but the Center for Career and Professional Development also holds those resources. So career and professional development, you'll also find them online. You don't have to choose between the two services, but you'll find which of these services is better for you in that regard. Okay, so a student can help you. They may have not that much knowledge, but if they don't, just reach out to career services and they will help you for sure. Now, there's a question that's in the chat, which is a really good one. Can we request a course which is not currently offered by the university? Shockingly, the answer to this question is not no. There are some courses that you can get support with, or kinds of courses that you can get help with, even if they're not being run by the university in a certain semester. But there are a lot of limitations on that. I'll show you this. As soon as I screen share, I'll show you the answer to this, why I give that answer to this question, which is largely it runs through another resource that you can find on eCampus, which is called LinkedIn Learning. I don't know if any of you are familiar with LinkedIn Learning, but this is a very valuable resource. And it is one that many tutors will link into their work with you in their classes. So for instance, the question about statistics, I'll show you in a minute, there are many resources on LinkedIn Learning about statistics, and you can use them to help see, but you can connect with these resources on LinkedIn Learning and use them, and you can still work with tutors. You can still go to office hours. You can use all of these services for help. So that may get with this question that you're asking about a course. If you are taking a course at another university, the tutors really aren't supposed to work with you on that course, right? So when you book an appointment online, as you'll see shortly, you have to say what the course is and who the professor is. So we are kind of limited to working with courses that are running at Adelphi, but many of the things that we help students with aren't even necessarily tied to a specific course. That's the last thing I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to hold off on that until after I show you the tutoring services. Again, the questions are great. I hope I'm answering them, but I want to pause for follow-ups in case what I said there wasn't totally clear. Okay, and keep those questions coming anytime you have them, and we'll have time at the end to ask more. I'll also put my contact information, and you have a direct pipeline to me through the International Students Support Office. So don't hesitate to raise questions anytime. We'll make sure we get them answered. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is screen share and show you how you move the services. Now, I may move back and forth between the screen sharing and this, because I don't want you to be bored just by looking at the screen if nothing's happening on it. But I'm going to show you. There are several steps, but I think what you'll find is that this is pretty intuitive. It becomes pretty easy to find and use our services once you know where to look. So I'm going to show you some of those services broadly, and I'm going to start with eCampus, because this is where you will connect with all of the services that I've mentioned before, with the exception of meeting your professor, which you would usually do through email, except for some faculty members who have booking appointments listed online. Okay. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with eCampus, so I don't want to be redundant in saying things you already know, but it does help maybe just to highlight a few things. The first is that this is an example of the way my eCampus looks, which is not the way your eCampus will look necessarily, because the services that appear here are the ones that you use the most. And the more you click on one of these little services, the more it will tile to the top of your computer screen. If you say, what does he mean, all of these different services? You may never have seen this button, the View More. These are all of the eCampus services that you have access to, right? So there's a lot of questions that you can get answered through here. I'm going to pause here to show you two different things. One is Ask a Librarian. We were just talking about this, related to, can tutors help you with research for a paper? And that answer is, of course, yes. And so can librarians. So you can, through this resource, click Ask a Librarian, and you see you get a way to contact librarians about a lot of different things. Whenever you see this green button at the bottom corner of the screen, the chat with us, it links to a live chat where someone is monitoring the other side, and they're going to be able to answer your question. So you would just fill in your name, your contact information, your question, and start the chat, and someone will respond to your question right there. So you could say here something like, how do I make an appointment to review research for a paper? Start the chat, and a librarian, someone on the library team, will contact you to help show you how you can make that appointment. Also, they have these resources like, these are the most common questions. I'm trying to find an article and I can't find the full text without having to pay for it. These are one of these. Can I access a book or article on eReserve? So when you click on these topics, they'll give you the answers as students can find them on the website. Okay, so that's just an example of how to use some of these services. That's the librarian services. This is LinkedIn Learning, right? And we mentioned before that LinkedIn Learning has many resources that you can use in conjunction with other services. And sometimes the people you are working with will refer you to LinkedIn Learning. If you've never used it before, you'll get these kinds of tutorial sort of invitations and stuff like that. I don't really want this. I want to just go back to the LinkedIn Learning thing. I already have a profile, so I'm looking for a way that I can skip this, and it's doesn't look like I can. Oh boy. All right, let me just go through a couple things real quickly. This is probably what you'll be related, you'll have brought up for you. So let's say I'm going to click some of these things and say continue. So then I'm going to say we're just continuing on to that page, right? Maybe later. You can use those. This is all the artificial intelligence that helps you determine, helps the service promote tools that they believe would be useful for you. You don't need to worry about that so much because you have this great search bar up at the top. So we had talked about statistics. And all you need to do, if you see you search statistics, it says 38 course results, 5 specifically for SPSS. There are some specifically on business, data science, the foundations of statistics. So let's go on statistics foundations. You click that, and what you're going to get is a list of resources that are videos. And you see that this is a course. Now, this is why I said, can you get help with courses that aren't currently running at Adelphi? If you are interested in practicing statistics, but there's no section of statistics running or that you're enrolled in, you can certainly use the LinkedIn Learning Statistics course. This one, for instance, has all of these resources. Let me see if it loads. And I'm going to pause it so it doesn't speak at us. But these are all of the components of the videos. And you see each one says this is a 3-minute video, 3-minute and 36-second video that shows you why all of this should matter to you. And you get into the sort of things like, how do you deal with what is a range? What is a standard deviation? What are outliers? All of these sorts of things that may come up in your statistics class, and you can search for them through the search bar and find material that may relate to you. There's a ton of resources on here. So some questions that I recently referred a student to was that she was new to Excel, and she was wondering, how do I create formulas in Excel? So even if you target that and you say Excel formulas, you can be directed specifically to resources that show you how to write Excel formulas and work with them. This isn't a guaranteed match, but if you do things like look at the material on here, I'm going to catch the person again so they don't talk at us. You look at the content here, it can tell you, it gives you the opportunity to choose specifically what you're looking at. So for instance, the student I was working with was interested in the sum formula. So going right to this video would provide a 4-minute and 54-second video on how to write sums in Excel. Now, many of you are probably already familiar with the idea that if you have a question about it, something like that, you can also easily open a tab and Google how to sum in Excel. And it may seem silly, but very often people that you're working with will remind you that you can use these kinds of searches to find answers to your questions, and they will bring them into their work with you. Like a tutor may do this and say, let's just Google what the resource is. In this way, they're helping you figure out how to use the resources appropriately, which ones you can trust, and maybe sometimes how to look. So these are all of the different services that are available to you in eCampus. We won't go over them all now, but I certainly welcome you to look at these resources and search for the ones that could help you. I'm going to focus right now on this one. Right now, again, it's called Tutoring, Learning, and Writing Centers, and it's a big purple light bulb. You can also find us just by typing tutoring into the search bar. You're going to get different options. This is the one you want, so it's going to drop you here. This is our eCampus page. It's developing and adding resources currently, but one of the things I want to highlight to you is these videos at the bottom of the screen. They show you how to do certain things, right? How to create an appointment. There's a video that's there, and the online appointment tour, which shows you how to access an online appointment. So if I show you how to do this and you say, oh, I don't remember, you don't need to worry. These videos are right here on our eCampus tab, and they'll show you. The videos were recorded with different screens than the one you'll be looking at, so it may look slightly different, but the functionality is totally the same, okay? So where you want to go in is this tab, the Adelphi Student Login. Now, if you've never used the service before, something different will happen for you than what happens when I hit this button, right? So what happens for me is I'm directed right to our schedule, which I'm going to show you how to use. If you've never used the system before, there's one screen that it'll take you before it goes here, which is the appointment or the account creation screen. this is something that is probably going to be pretty familiar to you. If you have an online account for anything, Pandora or Skype or any kind of online service, the setup is pretty much the same. It's already indexed to your Adelphi user account, so you don't need to create a username or a password. The username and password are your Adelphi email address and your eCampus password, but it does ask you to enter and update certain elements about yourself, like what's your program, what's your degree in, are you affiliated with a program, what's your home and native language. These are things that we use for our analysis of how our services are being delivered, and you'll be asked it once a year at most, and you only have to do it that time. After that, the page is going to drop you here, and I made my view a little small, so I'm going to make it the way I think it would probably look for you, which is this way. And you see we have some of these videos that are available to you right away, writing and research. There are guides that the university has put together that you can link to here. Certainly encourage you to click through and watch these resources as they're available to help you out. Where you want to start is this box that says choose a schedule. This is where it gets a little complicated for because it branches you to our different services, but I'm going to show you them one at a time. When you choose a schedule here, you'll see these choices, right? Digital Dropbox. This is our asynchronous service, as it mentions here. So by asynchronous, this is a term most people are familiar with by now. What it means is it doesn't work at the same time. So I'm going to show you how that service works. You click into it, and it's going to drop you at the Digital Dropbox scheduler. And again, for your convenience, you have this tool at the top that just scrolls through an overview of how the service works. What it's telling you is that we have 3 different resources. General feedback answers these sorts of questions. Grammar mechanics, these sorts. Style and format answers these sorts. These will also be shown to you when you click on an appointment. You'll note that today, Tuesday, March 2nd, you have this weird gray interface and you can't click on anything. That's because the digital Dropbox services stop taking appointments 1 day in advance. So you can still book a digital Dropbox appointment for tomorrow, Wednesday, March 3rd, but today, Tuesday, March 2nd, is closed off to you. The reason for this is that the asynchronous appointments, you'll upload a paper and you'll get comments back by the end of that day, right? So you have to have the appointments in 1 day ahead of time, and the feedback will come to you on Wednesday the 3rd by midnight, okay? So we have these 3 resources here. Again, the video at the top shows you, this scrolling PowerPoint at the top shows you what those different resources do, but I'm going to click into one just to show you how it works. There's no time difference with the slots. If you see a white space here, that means the appointment is open. Again, they're not tied to times. They're just slots. The feedback that you would get should come to you by midnight of that night. You click on the slot, and you're going to get an appointment form that looks like this. Again, it reminds you at the top of what does this tool help you with. These are the sorts of things, and tips to optimize your feedback, right? So this is the sort of things you want to ask the tutor. You're going to note this box here is scheduling e-tutoring. It's the only option. All of these are asynchronous. You're going to upload the paper, and then feedback's going to be emailed to you by a tutor. You would enter the course and the instructor. These red starred fields, again, are required, so you have to enter the material in there. And then in this, you want to say what it is that you want, what it is in particular you're hoping the tutor can help you with. So in something like general feedback, many students believe that to make a writing center or a digital Dropbox appointment, they have to have a paper written. That isn't true. You can show up to an appointment with notes. So you could write in here something like, I have written down thoughts about my assignment. Do they make sense? And that's a perfectly legitimate question to ask. the tutor does not have to be looking at a fully written essay in general feedback. For something like grammar and mechanics, you want to have a paper that's already done, right? And that you've already proofread and looked through and you're addressing. So once you've written that, you come down here to the file upload section. And what we recommend here is that you attach both the prompt. So it says here, attach a prompt to the appointment if you want the tutor to see it. You attach the assignment prompt and the paper that you're working on. Pretty simple. You just click in the choose file location, and wherever you have files that are entered here, they'll pop up and you choose your file and upload them. You are file limited against PDFs. So you can't upload a PDF style document because the tutors can't enter comments on it. So any one of these other formats, if you're working in Google Drive or Google Docs, you can download it to a Word file and then upload it from there. You would hit the create appointment button. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you really quickly. Upload a document. I'll upload this one. Okay. And I can give the document a title, and this I'm going to say is paper early draft. I'm going to say create the appointment. Now what you'll see, it says here the appointment's made, success. If you have a problem, this will show up as a reddish box and it'll explain what the difficulty kept you from booking the appointment. Note that sometimes it is that someone else has booked the appointment while you were working on it. And if that's the case, you might not see the appointment unless you click the refresh button of your browser. You see how this is my appointment, and it was created, so this one belongs to me, and you'll see it's different than the other colors, so you can instantly see what your appointment was. Now, so I go in, and I have the paper here, so suppose I made changes, and I said, ooh, I made this appointment 3 days in advance, but then I worked on the paper, so I want to change the paper that I have and upload it. You would go to edit appointment, and I see that I'll be right there. You want to upload it, and then you could upload a different file here, and you could say things like use the updated version, and then you would just name the paper updated version. Okay? I'm going to stop that just for 1 second. Okay. So that's how you would use an asynchronous appointment. I'm going to go back in and show you how to do the synchronous appointment, and then we're almost to the end, so we'll roll all of those questions in together. Same thing goes for a synchronous appointment, but it's on a different schedule. So the synchronous appointments book here, online tutoring. A couple more things to click. You'll see that the primary view is the same, right? This shows you when the tutors are available. So right now, today, you could still book a 30-minute appointment with Vicky. Now, you may say something, do I want to work with Vicky? What does Vicky do? If you click on one of those white boxes, which are 15-minute time intervals, their bio will point up, and see here it tells you who Vicky is. What's she a student in? What does she specialize in? What can she help you with? So you see she says here, including psychological statistics, advanced topics in social neuroscience, psychology research methods. If that's what you're working for, you can book her. Now, if you say something like, well, I'm doing business statistics, I think a grad student in psych statistics would probably be able to help you in some way with statistics. Note that the minimum appointment time frame is 30 minutes, but you can make it up to an hour by choosing the times from this drop-down menu. Of course, right now, Vicky is only available for these 30 minutes. So if you booked an hour, if you tried to book an hour, that appointment wouldn't take. Okay. The other really important feature I want to show you is the limit to function, and this helps you narrow down the tutors by the sorts of things that they focus on. Remember, they don't focus on specific classes, but they focus on broad subject areas. So if you look at something like writing and you limit there, you're going to get all of the tutors who are specially trained to work with you on writing. Right? And those are the tutors who are available at these points. If you click on something like grammar, You're going to get the tutors, which is a subset of the writing tutors who are specialists in grammar. And these are how they would work. So let me show you how that works. I book on a tutor, Lexi, one of our wonderful tutors, and I make an appointment from 9 to 9:30. I do the same thing, test, just to make the appointment ready. I'm going to book on it. It's a half hour. You have to click yes here, which shows that after 10 minutes you could be marked as a no-show. I create the appointment. This is how it shows on my system, same way. Now, in this point, these are synchronous appointments, so they're going to connect through video cam. What you would do here is we recommend that you use Google Chrome, which is a browser that tends to update all of the drivers needed. You would go in and you would click this button. You're going to get a form that pops up like this, right? And it's going to ask you to use your mic and camera, and then you would allow it. I can't do that right now because Zoom is using it, but I would click allow here, and then a little window is going to pop up here. Your tutor will appear here. The whiteboard is a live field that you can type in, and you would take it from there. Okay, so that's how you would use this this resource. I'm just going to cancel this appointment because I don't need it. If you're going to cancel an appointment, you have to do it 9 hours before the appointment runs. You see that we're starting to get really busy, so any unused appointment kind of takes an appointment away from somebody else. One last thing I want to show you, which is our third schedule, which relates to these things about other courses and stuff. This is the student success workshops schedule, and let me flash forward to see. Okay, it hasn't been updated, so I'll show you what it looked like in the past. We have many workshops that are specifically tailored to different questions, like organization, workload and time management, writing, paraphrasing. You check this schedule for new available workshops, and you can book on them. These are group sessions, so more than one student books into them as well. That is what's most important about that is that's the last kind of question, that academic question that I want you to ask, which is a broad skills-related question. So not tied to your particular program, not tied to any particular class, but something like, hey, how can I write better? Or how can I organize my time better? These kind of general student skills where there's always room for improvement. We work with that too on that student workshop schedule. That's the whole run of things. I want to leave at least some time for some questions. So who's got them?
Matt, thank you so much for such an amazing session, and I would like to open the floor for some in-person questions. Please go ahead and ask Matt whatever possible questions you would have, and because we are here to help, Matt is here to help. So go ahead. You got about 3-4 minutes before we end the workshop. So go ahead, please.
I also just dropped in the chat an email. That's an email address that you can use to reach and ask those questions in case you can't think of them now. You can ask us those questions. And also remember that those videos are available. They show you how that appointment booking process is true. I know some people ask about how much tutoring can you get, how many appointments can you make. There is a top end limit, but very, very few students ever hit it. So you can make, I think it's something like 240 minutes of tutoring appointments per week. So you can move between the schedules and all of that. Oh, that's so sweet. I'm going to put you in my pocket.
Well, I guess Matt has left his email address on the chat. So it's learningcenter@adelphi.edu. If you all happen to have any kind of questions, please feel free to email Matt directly, or else you can always reach out to International Services. We can get you connected to the right resource. I would like to thank you, Matt, once again for being a part of this workshop and sharing all that
It's
information.
1 o'clock.
All right, my watch also says it's 1 o'clock. Sorry about that. I'm in a different time zone. So, thank you so much, Matt, for all of this. It was lovely. Thank you.
Great. It was good to again meet all of you. Hopefully, we'll get the opportunity to see each other in person soon. Good luck, and we hope to see you at the Learning and Writing Centers.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Stay home. Stay safe. Everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.